today we have Kat with us, who is a first-year medical student at the University of Nottingham. Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Thank you so much for your time today. And you're on the graduate course there.
Yes, I'm doing graduate entry.
Perfect. So are you able to share kind of how you got to medicine and what your journey was leading up to this?
Yeah. So I'm sure it's very cliche. I think I've always sort of known the background that I wanted to be a doctor at some point. However, A-levels weren't the best time for me. I think a lot of people can probably agree A-levels aren't the most fun qualifications to do. So unfortunately, I didn't get the grades I wanted first time round. But I never even applied to medicine. I applied to just do biomed. Just because I wanted like the whole background before I got into like the heavy medicine clinical stuff. So I didn't get into uni first time, so I had to do a foundation year before I did biomed. So then I did my biomed degree, so that was like a 4-year BSc. And then sort of towards the end of my BSc, I kind of started to play with the idea again of, oh, maybe I should apply to medicine. Like, I either go down the route of a PhD or do medicine. So I didn't feel ready at the end of my bachelor's. Final year bachelor's is just crazy. You just get swamped with work. I was like, you know what, I'll do an MRes. I love research. I love the lab group that I'm with, and I want to carry on with what I was doing. And in the summer before the MRes, I'll just sort out the application. So applied in my MRes year and got 3 interviews and 2 offers, and then now I'm here today.
Amazing. Yeah, amazing. For graduate entry as well, that's super impressive.
Yeah, I was very surprised.
And you kind of made it sound quite casual, like, oh, I'll just sort it out in the summer of my MRes year, but that doesn't finish usually until like later on, does it? It's not like a class, like a May finish, like a
no, yeah. So MRes is finished in September, so September 1st. So I remember it was my Nottingham interview. I got berated by one of the professors there. So it was fine. I had to get a written letter to be like, well, all her coursework's finished, so take her. It was fine.
Yeah. So did the start dates overlap with the end?
Yeah. So I finished my MRes on the day I started my medicine degree.
Perfect timing, Yeah. So how did you find the process of applying while you kind of writing up your dissertation? Were you still in the lab at all?
So in terms of the application, like I did that the summer before the MRes. So I was working in a morgue for that summer because I sort of finished the bachelor's and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was a little bit lost, I'm not going to lie. I'm sure a lot of people feel that after they finish a degree. So I went to go work in a morgue, and then whilst I was in the morgue, I had so much free time that I was like, you know what, I'll revise for the GAMSAT. I'll start writing my personal statement. I'm going to get all my references together. And I just sort of used that time just to get organised, because that was the first time in like 4 years that I felt like things sort of slowed down a little bit, that I could actually free up some time to dedicate to it.
Not the most like traditional summer job, working in a morgue.
No.
Like how did that come about, or like what was your role in there?
So I think the university sort of advertised these, I guess, internships, and there was a pathology one, and I'm interested in pathology. So I applied for it and I got it, and it was a veterinary pathology one. It ended up being, but I still enjoy histology, pathology. So I thought, you know what, just go do that. And essentially I had to go to, so I was at Liverpool, so I had to go to the Liverpool veterinary campus, which is across the water in the Wirral, and do postmortems with the vets, process samples, prepare slides for the pathologists. Yeah, that was it really. Like, it was just a lot of histology and what's it called, dissections. So
Okay, nice. And was that related to what you then went on to do in your research for your MRes, those sorts of histology skills?
So yeah, my MRes is quite histology heavy. So, I've always worked with immunohistochemistry and things like that. So it was nice to use those skills, because they didn't have to train me. I just like went straight into the job of like, oh, I know what I'm doing. It's fine.
Yeah. And did you choose that kind of project specifically? Like, how did you go about?
So my MRes was with a lab group that I'd been with before. So there's something called a summer studentship. I'm sure people have heard of. So I did my summer studentship with this lab. I really, really loved them. They were great. Made research so fun. And And in my final year, I'd keep going back into the lab just to help them out a little bit with like microtoming and whatnot. And then with the MRes, I was like, oh, guys, I'm going to do an MRes, and I really want to come back. And they're like, oh my gosh, yes, like, we'll organise a project for you. And they were in the process of making a PhD, and they wanted my MRes to be like the foundation for the PhD, essentially. So yeah, I was really lucky, the fact that, I had this project tailor-made for me, because it was sort of more my strengths, and actually also things that I was interested in, like I hadn't really done, let's say PCR, for example, before in my undergrad. So I did a lot of that in my MRes.
Yeah.
So
all the exciting techniques to get under your belt. So it sounds like over your undergrad, it sounds like you had a quite big like research focus. So summer studentship, the morgue sounded quite lab skills focused. Were you still thinking of medicine like in terms of work experience for that at all, or was that on your mind? Or
yeah, it was, but I'm sure a lot of people could agree, like getting medicine work experience is difficult. It's really difficult. I was lucky because my PI with my lab is one, she was the lead pathologist for the UK. So I would go into the hospital with her and go get patient samples. I get to sit on MDT meetings. I was very lucky to get work experience from that. And then one day she gave me some emails. She was like, oh, these are people in the Liverpool area. Here are the emails. If you want to do it, email them. I was like, okay. He emailed like 20 people. One of them replied. So I went and did some work experience with him. So I was always thinking about it. It was just trying to find the right people that allow you to have that work experience was the tough side of it.
And also work experience that you get to really see what's going on rather than
exactly, you just sort of follow someone around, whereas the work experience I did outside the lab with the surgeon, he made me shadow nurses, physios. I got to go to ICU. I got to see pre-surgery, post-surgery, actual surgeries. So he wanted me to actually fully understand what I was signing up for. So that was really eye-opening, and it cemented it for me. I was like, no, this is where I want to be. I like being in hospital.
Because it can go both ways, I suppose. You could, the whole idea of work experience is to hopefully check that this is something you want to do. Okay, perfect. So you were obviously well prepared coming into the application. Did you do the UCAT as well, or just the GAMSAT, or how did the kind of that sort of exam season go?
Yeah, so I decided, in order to widen my options, because I knew I didn't have the best A levels, I knew I didn't have a whole lot of clinical work experience, which a lot of people get. I was like, you know what, let's just open my options, do some UCAT and do a GAMSAT. I did also think about doing the BMAT as well, because there was one year that I wanted to apply for, but I ran out of time and I couldn't really find anyone that would allow me to do it. So I didn't do that one in the end. Which might have been a blessing in disguise, but but yeah, so I did those two.
And when you were looking at applying, were you quite, I suppose, restricted because of A levels? I know different people, even though you've got a degree, they still hold on to previous qualifications. So did you have much choice when you were looking? Like, what was your method of choosing where to apply?
So I used the Medic portal, and they sort of break down what each uni want. So I used that to start off with, sort of properly narrow it down. And then I just went for ones that obviously wanted my degree. They weren't bothered about my A levels. They just wanted to see that I had A levels of some form, and that I had like a 2-2 or above. I think Nottingham's the only 2-2 uni, I think, but 2-2 or above. And then with the UCAT ones, I had to obviously strategically apply to ones that would overlook my A levels, and just sort of take my degree and a good UCAT score. But yeah, so that's how I had to do it. I think it was Keele, because they saw my A levels. They were like, oh, so your A levels aren't what we want. What is your section 3 GAMSAT? And I was like, oh, it's this score. And they were like, oh, perfect. We'll just overlook your A levels. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. So that was really lucky.
Yeah. Well, it makes, it's common sense really, isn't it? You're 17, 18, sitting some exams, to be held onto those when however many years later you've shown that you actually have a really good grasp of, then it seems silly to not, take it. So it sounds like they had common sense.
Yeah, you say that. I mean, I had one uni when I was inquiring. They said something along the lines of, getting good grades now doesn't make up for getting bad grades back then. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, I've got a degree, but whatever.
Yeah,
so, there's a bit of a stigma about it, unfortunately. But you live and you learn.
Yeah, and I suppose it makes it not the right uni for you. If that's the attitude, then it's not the right place. I think as well, they're just so competitive. You don't, unfortunately, they don't need to spend so much time on individual
that's so
cases.
True, actually.
But I think you miss out on great candidates. What the person who's worked hard and found their passion and found where they're interested in, that shows through in good grades later on. But
hey ho, I'm here now.
You're here now. Yeah. So then, did you apply to all grad entry universities?
No, so I applied to 2 undergrad. So I applied to Glasgow and Keele, and they were the undergrad, and then my grad were St George's and Nottingham. So it was quite mixed. And I kind of did the thing of in A-levels you do a high one, 2 middle and a low. That is how I was applying, just to make sure I did at least get one offer. I know a lot of people do that, so I was being very strategic about my applying.
Yeah, and there's quite spread over a lot of distances. You could have.
I know, yeah. I remember telling my mum about Glasgow. She went, "If you're moving there, I'll move with you." And I was like, "Oh God, okay."
Yeah.
It was a bit of a trek, to be fair.
Yeah, it's quite far. But I suppose there are only so many medical schools, and then when you narrow it down to medical schools that you meet the criteria for and entrance exams, it does become a lot smaller. Perfect. So. And then how was your interview experience? Did they differ between the different unis, like MMIs versus traditional, that sort of thing?
They were all MMIs. But I feel the experiences were quite different. What they were looking for, I found, was quite different.
Okay.
Some of them were very work experience heavy.
Okay.
Some of them were more about you as a person. And then one of them was just very... I don't even know what they wanted. That was the one that I didn't get. I do know I interviewed awfully compared to the other 2 that I did. I feel like they wanted a bit of a mixed bag, to be fair. It was such a wide range of work experience as well as you as a person, and looking for very specific traits, which is fair enough. As you said, they can afford to be picky. So, but yeah, all in all, the 2 that I got, I really enjoyed, and I actually felt like it was a fair interview. So
and were the differences between the undergrad versus the grad medicine ones, did you feel they were particularly different, or just the universities in themselves?
Yeah, it was the undergrad that I felt was more intense. They were the one, they were looking for such a wide breadth. They were looking for so much. There was 12 stations, I remember, and then I had to do a maths exam afterwards. So it was 2 hours in total, the interview, pretty intense. But that was the one that I thought was the most fair, because they wanted to see my communication. They wanted to know what I know about ethics, how I argue my way through things and reason, and I think a bit of manual dexterity as well. So yeah, I think that one was really good, and I would happily do it again, weirdly.
Yeah. Okay. Hopefully the interview, for at least for a few years at least before starting foundation jobs, the interviewing is done for now.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. So then, was it from your offers, how did you decide between the 2? Was it quite an obvious decision for you?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was one was a top university. The other one was a good university, but wasn't a top university. One was in the middle of nowhere. one was in a city, and I was like, oh god. So I kind of went for the city in the end, because I'd come from a city uni, and like I wasn't ready to like live rurally, and as someone who doesn't have a car, and they can't afford a car, it just wasn't going to work. And this is before the pandemic happened as well.
Okay.
So I'm kind of glad I went for this one in the end.
Perfect. And then since starting, obviously during a pandemic, like how has that been?
It's been okay, because I was finishing my MRes during the pandemic, and that was a lot worse than what's happening now, because I was living alone. I was in a flat. I couldn't really leave the flat. Whereas now, this is a course that I've sort of been working towards for a long time. I just keep having that end goal in mind of like, oh, one day I'm going to be a doctor. But also the way the course works as well, I think it's quite nice. Online learning, you do it in your own time. You haven't got really a big time crunch. And it's quite social as well, because you also have regular meetings with PBL. So yeah, it's been okay. Like maybe not meeting a lot of people on the course, but I do live with people on my course, so it sort of takes that away a little bit.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
How were you able to organise that, like going into your first year?
Like finding people to live with.
Yeah.
So there was a WhatsApp. So on the student room, everyone's like, oh, let's make a WhatsApp. So I made a WhatsApp, and then sort of found housemates through that, which was really lucky. And we all get on really good. So I was really fortunate.
Yeah, because I suppose moving to a new city, but not as a first-time undergrad, it's different. You want different things from the experience, and halls isn't right for everyone. So, and especially as it's a big year, makes a big difference. Yeah. And what's the teaching like style like at your university? Is it like a CBL, PBL, or more traditional type learning?
So we have PBL. So you have one case, and there's 3 sessions to a case, obviously over the course of a week. After the first session, they release all the lectures that you'll need that sort of relate to the case that you're doing. And then obviously it's up to you how you want to do those lectures. And we have clinical skills once a week too, which is good. We get to go in, talk to patients on FaceTime, do examinations on each other, obviously wearing PPE. So yeah, it's been really good. Like this uni have definitely tried to make sure we are still getting the same level of education as we would have been if there wasn't a pandemic.
Yeah. And how does the course work? So do they have an undergrad course as well? And then, because I was quite surprised, there's just been a few differences. Like some integrate really strongly with the undergrad course, some are quite separate. Like how does it work in terms of that?
So graduate entry at Nottingham, you are completely separate from undergrad for the first year and a half. So we're based in Derby, and obviously undergrad's based in Nottingham. So we're based at the hospital here in Derby. So we won't really meet undergrads until after GEM, really. So GEM lasts for 18 months. Once you've done GEM, you go into CP, which is clinical phase. So that'll be the first time we interact with them.
Yeah. So did you say GEM?
GEM. So graduate medicine. So we have all these acronyms to throw around.
Yeah. Okay, so a year and a half, so it's kind of outside the normal academic year. Yeah. And is that like an intense, like the equivalent of the first 2 years or more?
3. They're trying to get first 3 years into a year and a half. So it's pretty rapid. But they cover like everything. So, and people who've spoken to consultants who are at our placement hospitals are like, you guys are perfect. Like they've never seen a difference really in our level of knowledge to an undergrad, which is really nice to know, because sometimes you do panic, you're like, oh my gosh, am I going to know as much as them? But they wouldn't have GEM here otherwise if it didn't work. So but
yeah, it's interesting to see how the different courses work and how everyone comes out with the same degree, but different ways around it. And for the placement, so will you then integrate during those last few years just the same rotations?
So we're with them for what is it, 2.5 years?
Mm-hmm.
And then they sort of split it between Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire.
Okay.
And that's just random allocation, how they'll split that 2.5 years. So, and yeah, you will be with undergrads, you'll be with previous foundation students, because they have foundation medicine here. They also have another one, I can't remember what it is. I think there's 4 different medicine courses at Nottingham, but basically like, everyone comes together for CP phase.
Yeah, nice. And how have you found being on the, like, what do Nottingham have, like non-science grads as well? What's the mix of grads like?
Yeah, so Nottingham is so diverse, and I love it because everyone brings something different to the table. We have quite a lot of non-science background. We've got a lot of older students, and it just makes PBL, it just gives PBL that little bit more, because you know, they've got life experience that I might not necessarily have, or you know, from their degrees, like someone's done philosophy, they can bring a lot to the table when it comes to the ethics side of a case. And yeah, it's great, honestly. Like I just couldn't imagine it without them, to be honest. Like, so it's really fun.
And will you stay within that same group throughout the 1.5 years?
You stay with the same 6 people, I believe. Okay. I don't think they're changing it. Apparently they used to like change people every month, like sort of switch up. But because of the pandemic, they're just keeping us in a little group of 6, and we sort of rotate around together.
Outside of medicine, how have you, obviously again it's a pandemic, but have you had any things that you did throughout your BSc, any hobbies? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so throughout my BSc, well, literally since I was 11, I've done rowing. Nice. So I had an injury after A-levels, so then I moved from like rowing to like, I'm not sure how much you know about rowing, like coxing, so like you're the person that steered the boat, do race plans, whatnot. So I did that in my BSc, so that's 4 years, and then decided to just take a break from my MRes, because I really wanted to like dedicate all my time to my MRes. I'm trying to think, like, other than that, like in terms of hobbies, I think the BSc was so intense. Like if I wasn't rowing, I was in the library. So I probably watched Netflix with my housemates. I loved going hiking, going to the gym. Just a very normal life, really. So.
Yeah, rowing, from what I've seen of rowing, it is intense. Like it's not a kind of casual hobby that you sometimes do.
Nope,
the training
definitely not. So I literally would never be at home. My housemate's like, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "I'm on the water. I'll be at home in like 5 hours." So,
and early starts, like super early.
Yeah, sometimes it could be, depending on what day it was, but it was enjoyable nonetheless.
Yeah, and I suppose, did you work, like, was it like an 8 boat or like a pet? This is my rowing. This is the extent of my rowing.
It changed. It sort of depended on like what season it was. If it was head season, so that's long distance, or if it was sprint season, which is like 2,000 meters. So it did change, and obviously depending on how many people would not too stressed on exams would also determine what boat you'd be in. Yeah, great community. Also great for so many skills that you need in terms of a HCP career as well. Yeah, and it's just a shame that I haven't been able to do it because of this pandemic, because I definitely would have. It's good to like do stuff that isn't your degree sometimes, isn't it? Like to distract yourself a little bit. So
have an outlet that's not something
exactly.
medicine related. And is that it's complete? Does Nottingham have rowing facilities? Is there?
Nottingham have got a great rowing team. I think they invest quite a lot of money into it, but because I'm based in Derby, it's just too much of a trek. I think it would take like maybe an hour and a half to get there, something like that. But also I think because my age as well, like, they'll all be below the age of 21, and I think them having a 24-year-old telling them what to do, I don't think they would really take to that much. So I'll probably go and coach, but I don't think I would actually be participating in.
And with that in mind, how has the community been for, I suppose it's very different on a grad entry course because you have that community, but do you find outside of medicine there's been I suppose graduate focused, societies or support or that sort of thing?
Yeah, so at Nottingham we've got UNAD, so University of Nottingham something, and Derby. So like that's the Derby Society. So we've got loads of societies here. All my housemates are actually on the committee. So
nice, yeah.
So they have sports. They have like UNAD medicine, hockey, UNAD medicine, football, arts, yoga. There's loads. I think they are thinking of, doing some online stuff for people to do. We've been doing pub quizzes and whatnot all together. We've been having really good turnouts of that. So they are trying to keep us all social, because they do know that a lot of people live alone, and that's really isolating for them. The only time they see people in person is clinical skills. So yeah, they're trying to get more FaceTime interaction for everyone, which is nice.
And something to get to know each other that's on a different topic or a different conversation than
that isn't medicine. We had a coffee night the other night, which was nice, and everyone was just chatting so much rubbish, but it was so nice to see people that I'd literally never seen before, because they split the year is right in half, so like 60 people one half, 60 in the other. So I was meeting people from the other group, and it was really nice. So
yeah, I've been thinking that now I'm about to go into clinical years. There'll be people that, especially because of the pandemic, I didn't really see in lectures and things. I just might never see them again. Different rotations.
It's so bizarre, isn't it? Might see them at a Christmas ball, maybe.
Yeah. And you have like a sense of who's a medic and the people around, but realistically the course is quite big, and
it's huge.
And you're quite intense with your group of people that you know quite well, and then just when there's maybe in a few years time you'll work with them on a ward and you'll be graduated the same year from the same university but won't necessarily know each other beyond that. It's quite a strange thought. Thinking in the future now, then it's obviously big open question. There's not expecting set ideas, but is there anything that you're thinking in the future, like perhaps research, or any fields that you have a particular interest in? Or
I think I like to plan in the future. I'm a very organized person. So part of my bachelor's, I tended to specialize my degree in cardio, respiratory and oncology. So I really like those. I think from shadowing the cardiothoracic surgeon, honestly, I fell in love with it. It was amazing. So I think potentially surgery might be in the future, but I would like to keep the research aspect, because it's always something I've told myself since I was little that I wanted to help people. And being a doctor, you help to an extent. I actually want to find a gap where it's not being filled, and sort of do that myself, or lead a team with it, or just contribute to a team in terms of research. But I also I'm not sure, have you read the book War Doctor?
No, I haven't. No.
I highly recommend it.
Okay.
But from reading that, he really inspired me. I've always wanted to do travel medicine and aid work in particular, and from reading that book it really inspired me. But you have to be a consultant for the even consider those jobs. So that's way in the future. But I really like the idea of going to places where they haven't got access and just sort of helping where I can.
I suppose
those are my ideas.
And there's time to do all those things, isn't there? It's a long career.
Exactly.
And you can branch off and spend more time either being clinical or research, or maybe go abroad. So I was going to say maybe your elective for some travel as well.
I'd love to do that. I don't know where I'd go. Maybe I don't know. Maybe Tanzania. I love Tanzania as a country. I think it's amazing. So could go back there.
See. Hopefully things will be back running
a bit better by then. Fingers crossed.
Perfect. And have you done much with research, and obviously with medicine comes often quite a lot of teaching? Is that something that you can see fitting in with yourself, being more an academic on the university side, or researching more on the clinical side?
Yeah, potentially, because I always find myself helping other people in regards to like teaching content. So I'd love to do that. If an opportunity ever came up to teach a certain lecture, I'd jump at the chance, because you know, I'm someone that I don't really pick up on concepts very quickly. So I really appreciate when someone takes the time to help me. So if I can do that for someone else in a lecture theatre, I think that would be great.
Yeah, I think sometimes things seem more complicated, or sometimes people like to make them seem more complicated, and actually when you break them down into what they are in their basics, then I find the same with kind of calculations in biochemistry, because I always have to work through them, always, you know, step by step.
Yeah,
and,
I do the same.
yeah, and that's fine, you know, you don't need to look at it and just know the answer to be good at biochemistry. It's fine to just same repetitive over and over, okay, you know, units all the time, and I think being able to share that and say, no, that's fine, this it's nice to do, maybe when you get on the wards with
but it's such an important thing as a doctor, isn't it? You have to be open to teaching, because this is actually part of an interview once. If you know something, why should you keep it to yourself? You should actually be helping the next generation of doctors with that concept. Or, you know, if you found an easy way to do a skill, share it with someone. Like, it shouldn't just be you. If it's going to help someone else, just do it. I'm sure we've all been there where we're sort of a little bit lost, and then that one person comes over to help us. I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. So I think teaching is such a big thing in medicine. You have to be open to doing it at some point. So
and also in conversations with patients, it's, you know, similar to teaching in that you're describing new concepts. And we just had a tutorial session, and we were trying to describe diabetes, and she kept saying simpler, more like normal language, and people were slipping in, you know, like hypoglycemia, and she's like, what?
Oh gosh.
You know, and you just like, but it's sounds, you know, easy, but when you're in your brain, you're trying to learn it in complex terms, and then you're trying to describe it in simple terms. There's a skill to it, and that communication is I suppose it's teaching in a form. It's in each consultation you have to know. So maybe a science background helps as well.
Because you always have to do like layman stuff, aren't you, in some like papers. I always find, like, obviously talking to my family, none of them are in HCP, right? So trying to talk to my mum about something, she's like, oh, what's that again? And I'm like, okay, let's go to simple terms. So it definitely is a skill to be able to communicate in that way.
So thinking to round it off, if that's okay, what is your top tip, do you think, from the year, like coming into graduate entry medicine? If you could tell someone something that they're starting in September, what would you say?
Just relax. Honestly, it's not as intense as people make it out to be, and it's not the end of the world if you don't grasp a concept first time. Just take the pressure off yourself a little bit.
Perfect. I think that, especially going into something like medicine, that's
exactly. Really, you don't want that stress all the time. You don't want to face that burnout. You know, it's not fun.
No. So thank you so much for spending time today. We'll pop your details for your Instagram account below, so people can continue to follow your journey through graduate entry medicine, and if they have any questions, they can contact you there. Otherwise, hopefully things will get a bit back to normal. You can get out rowing, maybe.
Fingers crossed. We shall see.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.